out on this glorious Tuesday, August evening to talk about all things middle school. For those of you who are new to middle school, my name is Thomas Wilson. I'm the principal of the Bronxville Middle School. For those of you who have a long and storied history with the middle school, welcome or welcome back, as the case may be. This evening, we're going to talk about our plans for retrenchment and reintroduction to the building for students. We're going to talk about things that we have in place, both for security and safety, as well as academics. And I'm fairly certain that much of what we're talking about is solidified to the point now where we can talk about things in terms of what will happen rather than not being sure. So with that, we'll begin. As most of you know, the governor spoke at the end of last week and proclaimed that the individual districts could make plans to open school. I guess currently the rate of new COVID cases is 0.8%, which is very good news, and bodes well for us beginning school in person. We in the middle school are electing to have the students in every day. And there are several reasons why we believe this makes the most sense. And it's predicated on our experience from the spring, specifically as it pertained to our students in Q4. Let me take you back to that time just so I can give you some context. The students did very well with distance learning by and large. Our teachers were absolutely fantastic. They shifted their focus on a dime and were able to meet our students on a Monday after being in school on Friday and not being back in school again. Clearly uncharted territory for everyone involved. And the teachers grew in their capacity to use distance learning tools and conference tools such as Zoom. But as our teachers, I believe, by and large would tell you, Zoom is not necessarily a tool for education. It's a tool for one person to speak and lots of people to listen, i.e. what we're doing right now. The way in which our teachers have collectively taught over the last 10 years, at least in our middle school, has more to do with collaboration and engagement. Yes, there are breakout rooms and there are absolutely things that we can do to get to another tier of expertise in our use of Zoom. However, when we got to the Q4, we noticed something interesting, and I talked to a lot of kids during the entire time we were out. I had courses running almost every day where I was able to talk and canvass kids, find out what their experience was, find out what they were enjoying, not enjoying, find out what they were successful in and not successful in as it pertained to our distance strategies. And when we got to the Q4, we noticed something very striking, and it had to do with our exploratory classes. Our 6th grade students in particular said that while they enjoyed the classes and the teachers were great and they had robust, cool things to do, which is the high watermark for a 6th grader. If it's cool to do, then it's worth doing. They said they didn't really feel like they knew their teachers. Their teachers were lovely. They were nice to them. They were supportive. But there's something very important about actually knowing your teachers. And for the sixth grade in particular, who had no necessarily prior experience with any of the exploratory teachers, this became a point of consideration. So when we have been looking at various plans, from hybrid models to different distance learning models to in-school, in-house instruction, we took a cue from those meetings and with our kids, and we recognized that even if it's for a short time, the more time our kids have to bond with and connect with their teachers, the more we feel they will be successful in navigating the middle school program. That being said, if we have to make a change to our set course and paradigm, we are well prepared to do that. We have regulated our schedules in such a way that we, if called upon to do so, we could go back to a hybrid model or even back to a distance learning model if conditions in the school, in the village, in the region, or the state required it. So we've put in a lot of time to look at different models of bringing our kids together, and we feel pretty strongly that having all of the students connecting with their teachers as often as possible is still the optimum way and method to give instruction. That being said, we are also very aware that not every family feels similarly or as comfortable with the idea of sending their child to school for myriad reasons from various vantage points. So we are simultaneously preparing to have some distance learning for those students while the rest of their cohort is in school. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move on into academics this evening. So before we get into some specifics, I'd just like to remind everybody that this is, again, uncharted territory.
Sylvie, come here now.
Sorry? We are in a position where we are making decisions that have to be vetted by many different sources in order to be actionable. And we think that the course of action and plan we have in place is the best for servicing the students in our community, while also recognizing the needs for our faculty to be equally well met. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the health and safety issues first. And that will lead us directly into a talk about how we'll organize ourselves, organize our classes, organize our students to help with those health and safety goals. To start with, the construction that has been done over the summer and through the spring of last year has afforded the middle school some benefits that we will enjoy for years to come, including the fact that in some fashion, every room in the middle school now has air conditioning. That is a new event. I know some people will find that maybe a little surprising, but that many of our rooms were not air conditioned. They all have some form of air conditioning, whether part of the HVAC system or standalone units in classrooms. Our Director of Buildings and Grounds, Mike Lee, has been working tirelessly to upgrade our ventilation systems and make sure that we have a very healthy air exchange rate, and that we have the best filtration that is possible. Additionally, he has specific HEPA filter units that are going to be placed in smaller rooms, and rooms that maybe have a few windows or no windows. So, air quality is a consistent issue, and one that Mike is helping us tackle. He's also installing many more hand sanitizers and touchless soap dispensers in hallways and classrooms and bathrooms. Students will never be far from a sink or a hand sanitizing station now while in the building, and they will be encouraged to use them frequently. Mike Lee has also, with Dr. Montesano's help, he has sourced and procured for our school system plexiglass dividers to place on all student desks, whether they be individual student desks or group tables. Different types of dividers for different purposes have been ordered, and they will be picked up within the next week or two. The use of plexiglass dividers, along with a cleaning protocol that is sanctioned by and endorsed by the CDC, and the use of personal equipment such as face masks, really help to reduce the potential for people to be in super close contact, along with distancing within the classroom as well. So the rooms that we use have all been measured, and we can use all of them, but we may actually jettison some of the smaller rooms in favor of larger spaces once we fully appreciate what is happening with the flow of people and rooms. The rooms that teachers have been associated with will not be the case this year, and I'll explain more about that as we move into the academic plan, which is related to and tied to the safety plan. We are going to ask that middle school students come into the building using only one of three entrances. At this time, those three entrances are as follows. Two are on Pondfield, and one is on the Midland side of the building. The two on Pondfield include the auditorium entrance, the main entrance by the flagpole, and the Midland Avenue entrance is the one across from Library Lane. That's where middle school students will be asked to come into the building. They can use any of the three entrances, whichever is more convenient for you based on where you live and which direction you're traveling from. But we want the students to use only those three doors. Once students enter the building, our director of security and our district physician are going to be working to ensure that students are able to be instantly screened for temperature. My understanding is there is a Mac iPad-like device that is instantaneous. As you walk in front of it, it will tell you whether you have a temperature or not. Prior to coming to school, we are going to ask parents to fill out, and by the way, staff as well, to fill out a very quick questionnaire on a daily basis, explaining that to the best of your knowledge, based on what you've done at home, either you or your child is prepared for and ready to join school because their temperature is normal and they are not exhibiting any symptoms that would be concerning. If a student is suddenly spiking a fever as they walk in, they'll be asked to go to the health office, and parents will be called. During the day, masks will be worn in the building. We will have a supply of masks for broken elastics and masks that maybe have outlived their usefulness. But we would appreciate you supplying the masks for students as much as it's possible to do from home. That would be most beneficial. It does not have to be an N95 mask or a KN95 mask. It does not have to be any particular brand. It just needs to be a mouth and nasal covering of almost any variety, as long as it's durable enough to make it through a day. So that's what happens when kids get into the building. For those of you who have had students in the middle school, our extra help period, it's been decided, will be done virtually. We're going to have extra help with teachers happen before school starts. And then we will have students come to school, and rather than go to a homeroom class, they're going to go to their first period class. Now, before they get there, some other things that will have changed. Yes, there will be directional symbols in the hallway explaining to people which way to walk, and reminding people to give each other distance as they travel. But two other changes. One being that we're going to ask that students bring their supplies in book bags. A simple book bag, not an Appalachian Trail bag. Just a simple book bag or string bag, even in some cases, may work, because they're not going to be using their lockers. We think that both the physical education lockers and also the hallway lockers are too confining, too close, and don't send the same message that we're trying to send with the rest of our work to keep students somewhat separated and more room between them. So students are going to carry their bags into their first period classroom. And their first period classroom is going to be the classroom that they stay in for all 4 core academic classes. In an earlier meeting this summer, a parent asked a question about why can't the students remain in classrooms and the teachers rotate? And my quick answer was, it's a nightmare, and it would be very, very, very difficult to do. And I did it. And I worked on that for a long time, and I was able to devise a schedule so that the students do not have to change classes, but the teachers will rotate. So once students get to their first period class, unless that class is an exploratory class, and we'll talk about exploratories in a minute, if it's a core academic class, that's going to be their room for 4 out of the 6 classes they have a day. So they're going to be in the same place, and they will have far less contact and far less movement in the school than we usually do. please do remember and keep in mind that nobody thinks that this is a great new normal. That's not why we're doing it. We do believe, faculty and staff and administration in common, that the freedom of movement and the freedom to navigate the building on your own is part of what we're trying to develop in middle school. But given the conditions that we are opening the school in, we think it's most valuable to have the students remain in the classroom where they will be given their direct instruction by classroom teachers. At the end of periods, the teachers will rotate. We will not have homeroom for obvious reasons. It's just one more place to move to and from. And that homeroom function will be taken over by the first period teacher, we will still have announcements, we will still have attendance, and we will still say the pledge. But all of those functions will happen at the very beginning of the first period of the day. The teachers of academics will start mostly in the class that they are most associated with, classroom they're most associated with. However, after the first period, they will move to various classrooms to give instruction. The students will stay where they are. Exploratory classes could not be devised to function the same way, given the fact that there are more sections of exploratory classes than there are of academic classes. So the students couldn't be divided well, and some classes would get completely divided and others would be together. It doesn't make any sense to try and do that. However, the number of students in exploratory classes is already lower than it is for academic classes. So while sixth grade classes may be at approximately 21 students, seventh grade classes approximately 21, and eighth grade possibly around 22, exploratory classes run from about 16 to 18. So not only are those generally bigger spaces, but they also just afford us the opportunity to have fewer students in them. So too is the case for world language, where we only have 3 world language classes at a time. And so students will be divided by language, and they will meet in a separate room for that. So they will meet once for world language, once for exploratory, and or PE or music. It's not and, it's or. There are only 6 classes, 6 sections in the day. So the students will be moving far less often, and on any given period, the whole school is not moving. Sometimes only 1 grade level is moving, sometimes 2. I don't want to say that's never the shot for all 3 grade levels to move, but I don't think that's the case, except at lunch and the end of the day. And we'll talk a little bit about those 2 issues coming up. We're going to try and stagger the start of the day so that students will come into the building and they have to go directly to their classrooms. They may not congregate in the halls. Once in the classroom, again, whatever the classroom is, that's where they start their day, and then they would move if it's an exploratory or a world language class. Otherwise, they're in for at least the first 2 periods of academics. The lunch will also be staggered by a minute or 2 to give students in various grades some time to move through the halls. our plan for lunch as it stands today is that our brand new cafeteria, which is turning out to be a stunning addition to the school. For those of you who don't know, the architect had planned to annex and use the small courtyard, and that's all enclosed now, all part of the same cafeteria. And it's a very large area, but it's still not large enough to house our entire school simultaneously for lunch. So we have overflow rooms. The blue gym will be used at lunch, for example. But also we are going to, and again, if conditions change, this will change. But we are going to allow students in grades 7 and 8 to use Uptown still for lunch, following safety protocols, of course. There's nothing new about them going Uptown to lunch. They're supervised Uptown. Both Ms. DeSanto and I tag team and take walks around the village frequently. We know all the vendors. We know where all the kids go. We know where they eat. Additionally, kids who are to stay in school may also use some of the outdoor areas, the walls along Meadow Avenue, or benches or front steps or what have you, for use at lunchtime if they don't want to go off site, which is completely fine. The faculty will be monitoring the hallways between classes. They will be the only ones moving between classes unless one grade level is moving. So there will be a much more favorable ratio of teachers to students than we've ever enjoyed before. So students will certainly not be on their own in the hallways. The work of our teachers is not only academic or world language, but also our physical education department. It has been working all summer on developing and devising plans for students to have a successful, safe experience in physical education so that they can be in class and adhere to guidelines for safe distancing. And we're really looking forward to getting our kids in school and active. That will be a big help. Music, orchestra is not as big a deal because the room is cavernous, and kids do sit by themselves and play their own instrument. Band and chorus are a little different because of the breath and because of the way in which those instruments are played, whether vocally or by instrument. I don't have full plans for you tonight about what exactly we will do in every single case as it pertains to band and chorus, but I do have some preliminaries. The first one that comes, the first thing that will happen is that chorus will use the auditorium, and that's also for high school. So when the chorus is taking over a nearly 500-seat space, they can be spread to 12 feet distances very easily and successfully with room to spare. So chorus is a more reasonable example. Band, I don't have answers yet, whether we're going to focus more on music theory in band classes, whether we will be utilizing technology for smart music. We can certainly look at those things, but again, I think that's going to be a part two as we move on and get closer to our actual plan in reality. One of the things that's going to happen within the first few days of school is that Dr. Montesano has recognized and helped us to recognize that this is going to be a learning process for all of us, for everyone in the building, from our custodians to our faculty to our kids to our other staff members. Everybody is going to have to learn how to operate in the building differently. And in order to help with that, we're going to have half days from that Tuesday, the 8th, through Friday. I guess that's the 11th. And in that space of time, kids are going to be placed in their advisory groupings for longer blocks of time. And this is going to serve us in several ways. First of all, making a strong connection with the advisory teacher is really key, especially since we're taking away standalone homeroom, which is actually a daily check-in with your advisor on top of the other things I mentioned. But the other thing that it allows for is for us to do some deeper work on social and emotional wellness and readiness to be in groups again. Our new director of guidance, Mr. Aaron Kind, is very eager to work with our counselors and teachers in the middle school on making sure that we have really strong goals for our students. Our psychologist as well, Ms. Jillian Tomlin. Additionally, we're going to be rolling out technology to students in those early half group days. So Mr. Brad Ashley and his team are working now to make sure that we're ready to deploy Chromebooks to all students who don't have them. In grade 8, that's not really going to be a functional issue because we gave all the students Chromebooks in January of last year. Students in grade 6 moving to 7, we had some students request Chromebooks. They have them, but we're going for one-to-one correspondence, and all of the students in all 3 grades, whether they're new students or whether they just didn't have one last year, will have one. The Chromebook is going to be important not only in case we have to go back out on distance learning, but also because it will allow for us to do some more strategic teaching. And our director of curriculum, Dr. Mara Ketke, has worked tirelessly this summer with groups of teachers in devising and learning more about practical ways to enhance the use of learning with computers. And one of the things that came out of the IDE work that she was responsible for overseeing was for teachers to adopt a framework for how to break up a class period. And so that no matter where students are going, they will be exposed to the same kind of framework for how a period is broken up. For example, the first 5 minutes are attendance, introduction, and settling in, housekeeping, making sure everybody has what they need. Then there's a mini lesson, a shorter period of time where the teacher is directly instructing students, followed by a work period where students are then taking the work that they just learned about and actually doing something functional with it. A discussion period where kids come back together to discuss their findings and share their thoughts and their questions. and a wrap up where the next day's lesson is described. I can't stress enough, parents, how important event planning is for kids. They need to know what's coming. They need to know what's next. And that is no more true anywhere than it is in the classroom. They need to know what they just did and how it relates to what they're going to do next. And that is that's a framework for breaking down a class period. Obviously, the content's going to be very different, and the methodologies and the ways in which teachers approach things will be different. But if they have that structure, if they see how our time is broken down, it will be a very big benefit if we do have to go back out, because should we experience another school closure where students have to be taught from home, it will not be a truncated school day. It will be a full school day. The learning curve that we experienced last spring is over. We know how to do this now. And our students, many of our students know how to do it very well now too. So the school day would be a full day, which is very different proposition than what we had in the spring. So the students, if they are home, will experience this same structure and framework of how the time is broken down. And that will help them acclimate more easily to being in that environment. For those families who have elected to have their students learn from home rather than come to school, we are prepared to help, and we're prepared to work with your students. At this time, I don't have a specific breakdown of how that's going to work exactly. It may not look the same on every grade level. Not because there are frankly very few people who are opting percentage-wise to be out of the building. However, the answer to that may differ by grade level, but that structure within the classroom should also allow for us to have students streaming into the classroom to be able to do group work with kids who are also in the classroom. Students at home will be required to be with the class in some fashion during the entire time class is going on. And that will be a non-negotiable. But again, distance learning is possible, and it is also possible to do that functionally while we are also in school. From time to time, the work may change. Teachers may post work to be done, and then they may pull kids in once they get the rest of the class started. It really depends on the grade level. And again, when I know more about our final plans for that, I will certainly share them immediately. So I want to just reiterate the importance of kids using this academic classroom as their home base. That's what we're going to call the academic room, their home base. It's home base. They can leave their book bags in that room because no other kids are going to be in there other than them for the most part, if ever. Home base is important. Kids need to have an anchor. They need to have a place to be. They need to know where to go. And we think that this paradigm that was initially suggested by a parent is very worthwhile. And we are very hopeful that the safety and health measures being taken are very clear to everyone from day one. Additionally, I'm very eager to have kids rejoin their peers and their teachers in class from the beginning of the year. I don't think there's a high enough value placed on, you can't place a high enough value on that connectivity. It's very important to us. It's why we're doing all of this work. I didn't mention one thing about lunch. Mr. David Denuzzo, our Chartwell's contractor, who is part of our school community. He's, if you don't know Dave, he's a great guy. He has been working tirelessly as well to produce menu items and lunches that will allow for touchless grab and go. So that students will have a choice, but they will also have the ability to work with the food that we have in school, if you so choose. So that's also possible. I don't think we're going to have open gym at lunchtime at first. I also think that for the first few weeks of September, we're going to put a hold on clubs until we get better at this and we know what we're doing. Clubs that happen at lunchtime are included in that moratorium on clubs. But as we feel comfortable, we will begin to bring those out. So with that, I thank you for listening to me for the last 45 minutes. I know this is a lot to take in. There are a bunch of questions. I'm sure some of them I've answered, but I'm also equally sure there are new questions as well. I'll try my best to answer them, and I appreciate in advance that if I can't, I will either get you an answer or we will put it on the plate to consider. Will there be a cap to the number of students in a class? The middle school balance has been looked at very carefully in order to ensure that we don't have swelled numbers at any grade level or in any section. While we don't have a rigid cap, we try and keep classes under 24. Presently, I think classes are 20, 21, and 22. Again, some foreign language classes are 24. Other foreign language, world language classes are 15. The exploratory classes tend to be about 16 to 18 kids. And music classes also tend to be in the 20s. The other component of our schedule that we didn't discuss, I'm sorry, is music. We have before school music offering for students once a week. We're going to break that in half. So half of the students will come in on a given day of the week. And then the next week, the other half of the students will come in on that day for music, rather than having all of the students for music in the same place at the same time. How will chorus be taught? We did go through that a little bit. I understand I thought I saw a question come up and it flashed in front of me that there's some concern about people singing indoors at all. I think that's a decision that the music department, the superintendent, and our district physician, among others, including both principals, will have to address directly if there is concern about that. But it is our plan to give the auditorium to the chorus in order to allow that. Yes, absolutely. Adults will supervise hallways. They're the only ones moving. That's very new for us. Very often, teachers were the only ones who stayed in one place. In this paradigm, students are moving in smaller numbers. Teachers are moving, all of them, each period. The voice is broken up. His cafeteria will be open. The cafeteria, this is an esoteric semantic point. The cafeteria I refer to as the place where food is prepared and served. The cafeteria is open. So too will be the lunchroom. The lunchroom is where students actually eat. In addition to the lunchroom, we'll also have the blue gym available for students as well, so that we can make sure that we have a positive balance of students with enough distance. Cafe will be open. No one should sing in an enclosed space. We will certainly look at that. Will masks be worn during course? If it's indicated that they should be, they absolutely will be. Course may, and again, I am not sure what the final iteration will lead us to, but it's not out of the question that students in chorus or band may have plexiglass dividers as well. I don't know the answer to that specifically tonight. Olivia, plexiglass for band, certainly on the table. Was it considered to bring half the middle school back for a week or two to try out the new protocols? Yes, it was. And it was many different iterations of hybrid instruction were considered. But I'm feeling pretty confident that, that what we are going to experience, and thanks again to Dr. Montesano recognizing that those half days are going to be really important for people to understand a little bit more about what to do, how to move, how to read the environment correctly. We need everybody here for that. Otherwise, that process would just drag on and on. So it seems like this is the best way to go. I did not read the Duke study, Lou, but I know that others on my team are following along with me, and they may write that down, and we will look at it. We will look at that. But my understanding is that personal face coverings are kind of the ubiquitous ones you see are just about equally effective for what we're asking them to perform to do.
We're going to send that study out in one of the communications. I did post a link at the bottom of the chat for people to see. We would encourage parents to read that to pick out the masks that are being proven to be most effective.
Great, thank you, Roy. Can I explain what an advisory is? Absolutely. Advisory is a period during the course of the week, actually 2 periods, where students meet in smaller numbers, 16, 17, with a teacher who is with them all year long. There's a curriculum in advisory. Advisory is a time for students to do goal setting, to talk about everything to do with again, event planning and executive functioning. Students discuss their work with different classes, and they analyze results on report cards with their advisors. Advisory is a time to actually go through the process of meta-processing your academic and social life in a declarative, deliberate way with a trusted adult. And it is a mainstay of middle school education, and it's one of the things that makes it different than a junior high school. Plexiglass enclosures possibly have sound interference with teachers and students. Yes, it's possible. We don't know exactly what the difference in auditory issues will be. That would include also the ambient things happening in the classroom. One class is tiled, another class has carpeting. The material that the roof tile, the ceiling tiles are made out of, they may all have some effect, but understanding that those things could exist, we're poised to believe that we can solve many of them by changing things in a given environment to counteract whatever is happening. And that's going to be a learning process for us. And but for sure, this is not going to be a one-size-fits-all proposition. There will have to be some adjustments made, however so subtle, in various environments. Do we plan to share the percentage of each grade elected for in-person versus remote? Very low single digits, very low single digits. Can school-issued Chromebooks be left in a student's primary classroom at the end of the day if they have a personal Chromebook or computer to use at home? No. We want them to go home with the student each day. They have to be charged at home. We need the charging to happen at home, and we need them to come back in school. Additionally, again, not to be overly dramatic, but on March 13th, we left school, and on Monday, we were out. We want kids to have their supplies with them when they are not in school. So we want them to carry their Chromebook home. I just talked a little bit more about the advisor and the Chromebooks. Oh, 2 for 1. How will testing work with those who choose to learn remotely? I think the teachers did an outstanding job of devising and implementing testing for students who were all out at home last spring. And I harbor no concern that they will be able to meet the assessment needs of students whose parents have elected to have them home at least for the beginning of the year. Will grades be pass, fail, or actual percentages? They will be actual percentages. Pass, fail, again, was a stopgap as we learned how to educate students remotely and to give students a chance to learn how to learn remotely. We don't feel that would be necessary. Even if we were to go back out, we would be on graded percentages as we have been. Will the school provide hybrid options for families to choose from, or can we plan our own? Well, no. The option for learning from home will be fairly prescriptive. Again, as I mentioned, the students will be required to be with their classmates during class time as much as it's possible to do so. In some extraordinary cases, a teacher may post a Screencastify or a Google Classroom assignment for kids to do at home that is alternate from what's happening in classroom, either because the materials aren't readily available or it's just not feasible or practical. But no, the students are, if they're home, they're still expected to be in class, so to speak. How will remote learners participate in gym or band class? Well, this is back to the same idea that sometimes that may be possible. That may not be such a stretch. No pun intended. There may be stretching or calisthenics or yoga or other activities that the teacher will be monitoring both in the classroom, and he or she can look at a computer with tiles of the relatively few students that would be in any given class at home. In other cases where that's not as likely or not as feasible, there would be other methodologies, but the students would be asked to do that work at home and post it to the teacher by the end of the lesson. With 20 in a class, how can they be 6 feet apart? In every single case, that should be almost possible. However, the use of our plexiglass dividers and masks and distancing as much as it's possible as a composite answer to the question is that they will be as far apart as it's possible to be within any given classroom. We're also in the process of getting some storage for especially for some of the smaller classrooms to pull out anything that is not seating so that we can actually utilize every single square foot of the space. If school is only half initially and focused on advisory, could they distance learn in the afternoon to work on their academics? That would be a great plan if the teachers were not in need of that afternoon time for their own planning and for their own understanding of how to best meet the students. It is a half day for students, but teachers are going to need that time. They're going to need that time to functionally prepare and plan and move materials, because they won't have their own classrooms. Remember, they are nomads in this condition. They move from class to class. There will be teachers who are going to need to move materials for experiments and charging calculators and other science materials. It's not going to be a half day and the teachers go away. They're going to need the time, so we won't be doing that. Can your child switch out of chorus into orchestra? Not in grades 7 and 8. I don't think that's feasible. In grade 6, that's still an option. If you want to write to me under separate cover, that would be something we could talk about. Schedules will be posted on Infinite Campus during the last week of August. Both the high school and middle school have a history of posting simultaneously. And we will follow what Ms. Meyer does in the high school, but I believe that's somewhere around the last week of August. Will masks not be required during instruction, as New York Education Department and CDC advised especially? There will be No, we are definitely operating on an and approach. We are not saying, oh, you have a mask, you don't need social distancing. Oh, you have a mask, you don't need plexiglass. Oh, you have plexiglass, you don't need. And mask, plexiglass, distance. We are not doing one of the three or two of the three, as much as it's possible to do so. The school calendar is something that is set by the school board, and school holidays and other impediments to our schedule can be frustrating, but I don't believe there's much we can do to change those things. Will teachers be moving about the class or just stay in the front? My guess is that they will be moving around the classroom, but not as much as we normally would see them moving around the classroom. I do think that there will be more front of room teaching happening than I would have liked to have seen even a year ago, obviously. But I think that that these conditions warrant having the teacher be at the front, not only to minimize or limit the number of people within a certain number of square feet, but also the teacher will be communicating with, in some cases one, in some cases none, but in some cases several kids who may not be in the room via via computer. So they're going to need to be more situated than they normally would. But it's not out of the realm of possibility that they would be moving in the classroom. Also, please don't think that this means that students won't be doing group work. They will be doing group work. In fact, group work is going to be a high priority in the fall, because we want kids to be able to engage with each other, even if they can't sit tight and close to each other. Again, if we have to go back out, if we have those behaviors in place, group work becomes more normal and more second nature if kids are doing it within a classroom and recognizing, I'm working with him and her and the girl in the back, and we're all working together, but we don't have to be sitting together to work together. And that's part of what students are going to be practicing. If a child has a cough and cannot attend school, will he or she be able to participate in distance learning for the day? I don't know the answer to that question. I think that's one that I'm going to have to bring back to our administrative team, because whatever the answer to that is will probably be very consistent across the schools. I just don't, I don't know that I have the answer to that. So I'm writing that question down. So thank you for that. Roy, thank you for the bandanas and neck gaiter link. There will be lines at the school entrances every day if every child is supposed to be monitored. How will it work time-wise and distancing-wise? We are hopeful that that these instantaneous readers will do their job. We also understand that with 3 entrances, kids are going to have to come in fairly rapidly. If it doesn't work, we may have to opt to open another door and put another monitor in. If it proves that instantaneous is not so instantaneous, we'll have to change that protocol. But we're going to live it and then make a decision. If a child has a fever, will every family whose child was in distance contact with this child during the previous 14-day period be notified? Not necessarily, but if a child is found to have COVID, we will be alerting the health department, and we will follow the protocols that they put in place for us. It very well may be that we are to look at everyone that student was in contact with, but for just a fever, I doubt that very much.
Tom, if I can interrupt you for just a moment, if you don't mind, please. We did get some guidance, some updated guidance from the Department of Health yesterday, and in the next day or two, I will be posting the guidance that was sent to us, along with our protocols for testing, for contact tracing, etc. And there's a flow chart that if somebody gets sick, you can see the events that have to happen on the school end in order to follow up. In this particular case, if it's a fever, it's just one symptom, we wouldn't notify everybody, but certainly yes, if there's a positive case of COVID, we will do our contact tracing with the support of the Department of Health, and anybody who is considered a close contact, which the Department of Health defines as 15 minutes or more of close contact with the individual, then they will be notified and also be asked to quarantine.
Thank you, Roy. Please review kids in one room for core classes, but do switch for exploratory. Yes, and world language and PE. There will be music. There will be some changing classes, but very limited. Thank you. Students will be in school, Monday to Friday. The start time for school is going to be a little earlier than 8:30, likely 8:20. And again, once students are in the building, they're to go directly to their classrooms. And we will also look at some form of phasing students out of the building at or around 3 o'clock as well. How do the teachers feel about this plan? The teachers, I had a faculty meeting this afternoon with teachers, and true to form, I have the best faculty of any principal I know. I have the most professional, the most caring, the most concerned, the most thoughtful faculty. I am deeply, deeply indebted to them, and I am also humbled to be among them. They are only supportive and helpful and interested in making things work. They also would prefer to be in a COVID-free world like the rest of us. So they understand and recognize that none of what we're talking about is a great new plan forever. It's a plan to allow kids to be educated while we are experiencing these conditions. Children will not have to carry around jackets, hats, etc., because they will have their home base. That's what we're going to call it. Their first period room is their home base. And that home base room is where they can leave their stuff. Extra skill support will still be offered. I don't know about extra, Grace, but maybe talk to me about that offline, and we can know more about what that means. Skills is part of the schedule, and those rooms will function as they have before. We talked about Roy answered the COVID question. If a family needs to do a 2-week self-quarantine, we would get you all the material that you would need electronically. We are also not going to be doing things that we routinely do, like council meetings will not be in the building. Executive council meetings, not in the building. Back to school night will be virtual this year. It's just better not to have more people in the building than we need to have in the building. So, if a child was absent for 3 days in the past, we would collect work and have it in the office for you to pick up. Well, in this condition, we will get it to you electronically. Students are placed with advisors in grade 6 by consult with the 5th grade teachers. Students in grades 7 and 8 are going to remain in their same advisory group they were in last year. Thank you for bringing that up, Courtney. That's important. Our teachers felt strongly that being in the same group with the kids they were in last year would be one more connection of security and a known universe. So we're going to have the kids in the same cohorts with a new advisor. What happens when a teacher gets sick with COVID? Does everyone go out for 2 weeks? What about substitutes? How will they be vetted? I think some of this was kind of addressed, but I'll stop again if there's more detail that anyone wants to give there.
No, again, Tom, it'll depend on the contact tracing, et cetera. So if it's a teacher that is in close contact with kids, we'd have to, yes, quarantine, or at least begin by isolation and quarantine of those kids for 14 days. So it really depends on the whole contact tracing piece and what the Department of Health advises at that point.
Thank you. Can a student switch from distance learning to going to school? We'd appreciate you not switching, but if that becomes a question, I think that you can contact me directly, and we can talk about the potential for that switch. Who's monitoring the students in the classrooms when the teachers are switching? Well, in those moments, the students may be in the room for up to a couple of minutes on their own. If that becomes problematic in any given situation, we will have an adult sit in the room while the switch is happening, but we will give them the benefit of the doubt at first. We talked about that. Child is, can you take a break? Yes. If one of the things that we're hoping teachers will do for students, at least as it makes sense to do so, we want them to get the kids out of the rooms anyway, to go outside, to be able to use a class period to be without a face mask with enough distance, to take a break from the mask for a few minutes and then put it back on, definitely. We talked about schedule. That outside time, we're hopeful that we can get some built in. Could students attend core courses? That would be very difficult to offer core courses only in the morning and then attends classes in the afternoon. I don't have enough staff to do that. The hours are going to be almost the same. How will team games in gym and social? Team games in gym may not be the first kind of work that they're doing in PE classes. They may be doing more individual sport or interpersonal exercise and stretching, things of that nature. Changes for supplies. Yes. All of the supplies on the supply list are still functional. The only thing we'll ask you to add is a book bag, which is not something we have asked you to get before, but most people have anyway. But a book bag or a string bag would be best. We are going to be asking the teachers to look at how they can condense the amount of stuff they need kids to have every day, because we don't need them to be carrying huge, heavy book bags. Full day classes would begin the Monday after the first week of school. So that would be the 14th of September. Well, why have plexiglass 6? I can't answer that question directly, but having multiple forms of protection seem like a good idea in general. Designating certain kids to use certain entrances isn't going to necessarily make a big difference in the number of kids at any entrance, and I'd prefer people use the entrance they're more comfortable with, but if that proves not to be effective, we'll change it. Roy had answered that. The same, if a family member's been diagnosed, we'd like to know. We would like to know for sure. Again, that's a Department of Health issue. Sports, I think, are a question mark at the moment. how they would be happening, when they would begin. That, not unlike clubs, I think is going to have to roll out under a different timeline. If a child is quarantined, yes, they can participate in distance learning. Home-based room is the same every day. Yes, home-based room is where they would go to put their things. Now, in the case of 8th grade, 2 days a week they will have their first period academic in that home-based room. The other 4 days a week they are either in world language or an exploratory class, but they can still drop their things in their home-based room. Because after that, they will be in that room again. Advisory groups are not the same as the home base. They're different. Teachers rotating, they will have contact with lots of students who can, yes, I mean, if we were talking about high virulence, yes, I guess that's true, but we're going to be operating across the board with social distancing, even for teachers in hallways. There won't be clusters of kids allowed to gather, congregate, or run down a hallway or up a stairwell. Yes, the MS is going to have a form to be filled out electronically. And who decides when a student should be quarantined? I believe that would be the Department of Health. And thank you, Mariana. I appreciate that very much. And Alana, thank you as well. With that, I know this was a long haul, an hour and 20 minutes. Thank you for hanging in. We didn't lose too many people, Mr. Ashley. That's impressive. I don't know what you did to keep them all here, but I want you to know that this is a public meeting, but this is not your only chance to have a conversation. You can contact me at any time. I am sadly here all the time. Not unlike you, I'm home, and with the exception of storms, I'm usually able to access the internet. If you are a 6th grade parent, I may have sent you an email today asking you to fill out your child's world language and music form. If that pertains to you, please, I need that in order to complete scheduling. Again, you don't run out of chips. You can ask as many questions as you have. We are around for the duration, and we are all very excited to see each other and to be able to be in a place where we can see your kids on a daily basis. And as I said, I had a faculty meeting earlier today, and it made me well up to see all of our talented, energetic, excited teachers in one place. And I think for your kids, they will truly enjoy the experience of being back in the school with their teachers as much as it's possible for us to do so. If you opted not to send your child and you want to change your mind, you can certainly do that if you email me and let me know so we can properly account for everybody. Otherwise, if you are going to continue to keep your child at home, we will work with you. And as I know more about that, I will absolutely tell you how we will run that and what to expect, if it's going to be different or the same on each grade level. Thank you for your time this evening, and I will let you go. Thank you, everyone.